But I have found that attorney, and she is here today to give you guys some pointers to help you, keep your business on the up and up and not get in trouble. So here's my favorite attorney, Sarah De Diego.
Am I on? Great. So I'm going to be honest, my presentation's pretty boring. It's nothing like Luke's tonight, Black Hat Night. You're going to enjoy that probably a whole lot more than what I'm going to say. But I will tell you this, that what I'm going to say is way more important than anything Luke is going to say. I might even say it's more important than what Greg is going to say, because what I'm going to say hopefully will keep you from going to jail. And yes, you can actually go to jail for internet marketing. Bet a lot of you didn't know that. You can go to jail for internet marketing. That's not fun. This is fun. That is not fun. So let me ask you a question. I know you're all here because you want to get as many tools as possible so that you can go out and you can become the next Greg Davis, right? That's what you're all here for. So how many of you would like to make $1 million in the next 12 months? Anybody not want to make $1 million? Okay. So what if I said, though, that $1 million is the only $1 million you're going to make, but instead you could make $300,000 a year for the next 20 years? Who'd rather make $300,000 a year for the next 20 years? All right, only some of you. Some of you want the $1 million quick. I understand. So for those of you who want the $1 million quick, you might just want to go to the bar now because you probably don't want to hear what I have to say. What a lot of internet marketers don't understand is that you can make crap loads of money by actually being compliant. And you can stay in business a really long time. Maybe you won't make $1 million like that overnight, because the way to do that is probably not the way that's going to keep you out of trouble. But you can make very good money, lots and lots and lots of money, and do it for a very long time. I personally would rather make a lot of money for a really long time than a ridiculous amount of money once and be done. It just seems like a better business model. But unfortunately, not everybody thinks that. So we're going to talk just about a couple of things today. There's obviously a lot of laws out there that govern what you guys do or what you're going to be doing, and we can't cover all of them. We're just going to cover a few of them. I'm not going to go through everything on the slides because they're long. They're long on purpose so that you guys can take them home, look at them, hopefully, read them, maybe check out more things. The FTC, I'm sure you're all aware who the FTC is, has some fantastic guides on their websites. There's links to them in the slides. I would strongly, strongly, strongly suggest reading them. They even have pretty pictures in them that literally say, don't do this. They have like X's through what you shouldn't be doing. And it's a very good resource to try to keep yourself out of trouble. A lot of people, especially when they start out, they're doing well, they see what someone else is doing, they're like, I'm gonna copy that, I'm gonna do that, and they get themselves in trouble right off the bat. So try to avoid that. You wanna be around this for the long term. So we're gonna start with talking about false advertising. This covers, obviously, a lot of what you're doing. So the last presentation, a lot of the other presentations are talking about ways that you can advertise, ways that you can make money through advertising. And there's some really simple rules that cover online advertising. So your advertising must be truthful and non-deceptive. Advertisers must have evidence to back up their claims, and advertisements cannot be unfair. So we'll take something from the last presentation. Say you're going to be selling a product on Amazon. You're taking photos of that product, you're writing a description, you're making it sound as good as possible, whatever that product is that you're going to be. So you're going to be selling, I don't know, a tennis ball. And you get up there and you say, this is the best tennis ball that was ever created. It can bounce 50 feet in the air. You're never going to find another one. Every tennis pro uses this ball. Well, if you don't actually have the evidence to back up that claim that every tennis pro uses this ball, or this ball can bounce 50 feet, you've just violated the FTC's rules on false advertising. You're telling the consumer something that's not true in an effort to get them to buy your product. Now, obviously you see this a lot in advertisements. People puffing up their product, saying extra things to make it sound better, because obviously you want people to buy your product. Sometimes it's as simple, though, as just changing the wording in what you're saying. So instead of saying, this ball bounces 50 feet, you could say, this ball could bounce 50 feet. Maybe it could. You don't know. It's quite possible. So a lot of times it's just the difference of changing a couple of words, and you can still get across the same message. You can still have a successful marketing message without actually violating the rules. Here's what the FTC looks at when they're deciding whether or not your advertisement is false and deceptive, whether a reasonable consumer would be deceived. They look at the express and the implied claims, so not just what you're actually stating on the page, but what you failed to state on the page. If you failed to state that in order for that ball to bounce 50 feet, you have to drop it from a 10-story building, you left out something that's really important. And that's the next one. They look at what the ad does not say. They look at whether the claim would be material. So if the claim that you're making is what makes people buy it, that's what they're going to look at. And they look at whether or not you have sufficient evidence to back up the claims you're making. So have you done a study to see if that ball really bounces 50 feet? Have you had an independent study? What do you actually have on file to back that up? We're going to look at a couple of just examples, some random examples I pulled from the internet of things people do that are not okay. In this one, I don't know if you can see it, at the top there it's got a little box that says, warning, if you leave now, your reward will be forfeited. Totally not true. You can click out and you can still go ahead and buy whatever it is they're selling. The top there it says, you have one new message. They make it look like maybe this is your inbox, something. And this was just actually from a banner ad you clicked through. Congratulations, you've been selected to receive $1,500 in cash. It's all false. None of it even has anything to do with the product. I think this was for a credit report ad. But they're trying to get the consumer to click through, open it up, and see what it is by, this would definitely be false advertising, the warning, the congratulations, and telling them they've been selected to receive $1,500 in cash. Here's a popular, we see these all the time, obviously. Dr. Oz, I think, is probably the most used figure in online advertising. He has an entire legal team that just goes around getting this stuff taken down. That's all they do, nothing else. So here's a popular one I pulled up online. Healthy Consumer Living. This is obviously not really a newsletter of any type or a news site. Stores struggle to keep the popular fat burner in stock. It goes on to talk about how Dr. Oz is recommending it if, for some reason, the slide's cut off. But if it wasn't cut off, you'd see it's a video. You can click on it. He'll talk about it. He really did talk about it. It's just that this marketer doesn't have the right to use his video on there. They don't have the right to use Dr. Oz's face. They don't have the right to use his name in their ad copy. And their ad copy goes on to say things like, you're going to lose 10 pounds in a week, et cetera, et cetera. When the FTC has said clearly that having weight loss claims like that are per se violate the law. At the bottom of the page, they've got a comment section. It's all fake. These aren't really people's comments. These are just comments that somebody sat there and wrote and put up on the website. So this would definitely violate the false advertising rules because they're fake. And I know this obviously is a common thing that people do. You're trying to sell a product, you got a new splash page you just put up, you've got nothing to fill it. No customers have actually made comments yet. So what are you going to put at the bottom? Well, Johnny wrote, etc. And Jenny wrote this. You can't do that. It's plain and simple. You can't do that because you're making up fake comments. It's false advertising. Here's another one, kind of same idea. They got the as seen on the logos. Probably wasn't really seen on those websites, or if it was from a banner ad maybe they put up. Goes on to again, this one is supposed to be her reviewing the product, talking about how she tried it, she lost all this weight. Well, there's no, whatever the person's name is. I know another popular one is where you see the stay-at-home mom made $7,000, try this product, and it pops up with a different name, a different city, depending on where you're opening it. Also, false advertising. There's not really a stay-at-home mom in Los Angeles, and the same one in New York, and the same one in DC. So because that person's not really in that state or in that city, and they're probably just fake and made up anyways, the picture's a stock photo, the story's made up, that would all be false advertising. Obviously, I know it's a common thing. Probably a lot of you in this room do this, but just letting you know, you shouldn't. Just some more examples of things that you shouldn't be. Here's saying, personally, I'm especially a fan of our first choice. I think this is for our Garcinia product. Goes on and says how, she loved it so much, she researched it, she tried it. Well, there is no person actually researching this or trying this. It's just a marketer like yourself writing it up. Let's talk a little bit about, switch the topic from false advertising to rebills. I know probably some of the products that you're pushing, maybe pushing, or your own products have a rebill or a continuity program. You give them 14 days trial. If they don't return it within that 14 days or cancel, then they get auto-billed, $79.95 a month for the rest of their life. And they have no idea who it is, generally, who's rebilling them. Maybe they do, but probably they don't. A lot of times they can't cancel the rebill either. They end up having to close their credit card. The FTC gets a lot of complaints about these, and this is kind of one of their areas they watch closely. So the FTC has given some guidance on what is needed in order to do a rebill. Now, rebills don't per se violate the law. There's nothing wrong, actually, with doing a continuity program or a rebill, as long as the consumer understands what they're signing up for, and they know that they're going to be rebilled. And in order for it to pass the FTC's test, the terms need to be clear and conspicuous, meaning that the consumer actually sees what they're signing up for before they click the submit button. The FTC says that the disclosure should be prominent. You look at the presentation. Is it easy for the consumers to understand? Or did you put it in tiny little gray font on a yellow background? Placement, where is it? Is it down below the fold of the page where they're never going to scroll down and see it? Or is it up next to the submit button? Is it up above the credit card submit button? Proximity, how close is it to the claim it qualifies? So if it's saying that it's a free trial, and all it says is free trial, 14-day free trial, but then nowhere on that page does it say that they're going to be rebilled, you're going to be violating this. Prominence, is it big enough for consumers to notice and read? I generally see them and they're in like maybe 8-point font, whereas the free trial part is in like 58 point. That's not going to cut it. I mean, the FTC is going to look at that and say, seriously, you put free trial in 58 point, and then you put we're going to charge you $2.99 in 8-point font. It's just not going to work. Note, the test is not, is it readable, but rather, is it read? And these slides I actually took from the FTC. They're not mine, so I'm not making this up. They actually made these slides. I'll give them credit for that. They can do pretty colors and stuff. I can't do that. I'm just a lawyer. But their test is it not, is it readable, but rather, is it read? Because a lot of times I get this pushback from advertisers, and they say, well, I mean, you can read it. It's right there. It's not my fault if they don't. That's not how the FTC views it. They say not is it the fact that they could read it if they happen to scroll all the way down to the bottom and then got out a magnifying glass? It's, did they read it? Is it somewhere on the page that they're actually going to read it and know what they're signing up for? Here's some things that you can do in order to comply. You can use text. You could actually say, payment terms, rebill terms. Here's what happens if you don't cancel. You can put it in big letters. You consider sound. I'm not really sure. I never really understood what that one was, but maybe you could have a voice say something. Avoid pre-checked boxes. Don't pre-check the box that says I agree to the terms and conditions. Make them actually check it themselves. If you're putting in hyperlinks, if it says check the terms and conditions, they've said clearly, don't be coy about your hyperlinks. Don't hide it. Don't hide it under more info or legal. Actually put it somewhere that they're going to see it. And then find out if your consumers are actually clicking it. If the important terms are just in a hyperlink and you know that no one's clicking on it, you're probably like, ha, 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 ha. Oh, good. I'm going to sell more. That's what the FTC is going to look at. They send you a letter, they're going to ask you, how many of your consumers are actually clicking on that link and reading your disclosures? And you want to be able to have the answers be the majority of them, not none. Size matters. Where you put it matters, but also the size of it is probably the most important thing because that's what's going to determine whether or not someone actually reads it. Your color, your graphics can help. They can also hurt. When you've got it in that tiny gray font, which I know I keep saying that, but that's all I ever see is the tiny gray font, which no one uses gray font for anything except for rebill pages, in my opinion. I've never seen anyone use it for anything else because it's not readable. And most people want what they're writing to be read. So your color makes a difference. Graphics, put it in a little box. Make it so that people see it. You can be creative with this in a way that it doesn't hurt your conversions. I mean, there's lots and lots of ways to do this that will not hurt your conversions in any way, and you're still complying with the law. It's just that marketers, from my opinion and experience, are kind of lazy. and they see everybody else putting in the little gray font, and they say, this is the way to do it, I get the best conversions this way, instead of just trying to split test some compliant ways and find a way that actually works that isn't going to get you in trouble. Here's some examples I pulled. Hopefully this is no one's product. Generally when I give these speeches, somebody in the audience comes up afterwards and is like, you used my product, I can't believe that, it was just fine. That they're never, because I never pull ones that are fine. So here's the page, I screenshotted it, I stopped at the fold of the page. It says rush my trial. Up there you put in your credit card. Now if you actually scroll down below the fold of page, which I don't know anybody who does except me, you'd see in the tiny gray font that it says, I can't even read it actually, you're going to be enrolled in our membership program for $89.73 per month. I like the $89.73. I think they probably did that in a way to trick the consumer when they see it on their credit card statement, because they're going to think that they purchased something, because it's an odd number. If it's $89.99, it's more likely, I think, for them to notice that they signed up for something like this. But $89.73 is more the kind of number you get at the grocery store. So tricky. Completely non-compliant. This definitely violates all the FTC rules, as well as California. And I throw in California slides, one, because it's where I happen to live, and two, because that is where we have the most lawsuits come out of, is from California. I'm not sure what's up with the slides. Well, we'll go to that one. California Business and Professions Code, section 17600, actually gives the rules of what you need to do if there is a rebill. And they say it very clearly. They say that the rebill terms, or they call it automatic renewal, have to be clearly and conspicuously displayed, and they actually say what it means. And see, I put it in big black because I actually want you to read it. Clear and conspicuous means in larger type than the surrounding text, or in contrasting type, font, or color to the surrounding text, or set off from the surrounding text of the same size by symbols or other marks in a manner that clearly calls attention to the language. It doesn't get any clearer than that. It says your rebill terms, or any other really important disclosure, needs to be in bigger font or contrasting typeset so that they actually see it, or in a color that they're actually going to see. So anyone who says, oh, no, it's fine to have the little tiny gray font on the yellow background, I just copy-paste this and I send it to them. I mean, it's right there. I didn't make it up. It says make it bigger, the font bigger, contrast it, or set it off in some way that they can see. We're going to move on now, and we're going to talk a little bit about email marketing. I know some of you do different types of marketing. Greg said that we have a number of email marketers in the room, so we're going to talk a little bit about this. This happens to actually be my favorite subject, since the majority of what I do is email compliance. So everyone's heard of the Can-Spam Act of 2003. You probably think this is a big, scary law. A lot of you actually might think that the Can-Spam Act, or the law in general, says spam is illegal. Not true. Spam is perfectly legal. There's absolutely nothing wrong with spamming everybody. There's nothing wrong with buying a list of email addresses and then sending out an email. There's just rules that you have to follow in order for it to be legal. And there's not really that many rules. There's actually 7 rules. We'll go over them real quick. Again, I took this off the FTC's website. They make all these fancy slides for me, so I don't have to. 1, don't use false or misleading header information. We'll talk a little bit more about this in a few minutes, since I think this is where people get tripped up the most, and this is where we see all the lawsuits from, is from the false and misleading header information. The basic is, though, that your from line needs to identify who's sending the email. Sounds pretty simple, but a lot of times that's not what happens. A lot of times you choose, I want people to open a little more. I'm going to put congratulations as my from line. Seems like a great way to get people to open it. I'm going to put Disney as my from line. Everyone's going to open that. Well, you're not Disney. You're not congratulations. Unless you've gone down and made the business Congratulations Inc. as your business, you're not congratulations. You've just violated this rule. Don't use deceptive subject lines. Again, even now, which is just crazy to me, I'll see it say RE, or like a forward, so people open it. Or, hey honey, how you doing today? So you think your mom sent it. Violates the law. Don't use deceptive subject lines. Your subject lines needs to be related to what's actually in the ad. So if you're sending out a Match.com ad, it should have something about dating. It should have something about what's inside the body of the email. Identify the messages in the ad. This is actually the one that I think people miss the most. The law actually says that you need to physically say it's an advertisement or a solicitation. It's pretty simple, the bottom of your email or at the top, or I like to just incorporate it into the footer. Say this message is an advertisement. That's it. Like literally say this is an advertisement or this is a solicitation. It's really simple, but that's actually a rule. And you know that violation of these rules is $16,000 per email? I'm not sure how many emails you guys send out in one day on a good campaign, but that's enough to make you move to a different country. From one campaign. From doing something as simple as not putting in, this is an advertisement. And you don't have to even say this, you could just say advertisement or solicitation. It's really simple. But for some reason, nobody does this. Tell recipients where you're located. So in the footer, you need to have your address. It doesn't have to be your home address. The FTC has said that a P.O. box, a mailbox is fine, but you have to have your address, and you have to actually check the mail. I know a lot of people that put an address in there, and then they check the mail like every 2 months. That doesn't really do a lot of good when opt-outs have to be taken within 10 days, which would be the next one. Tell recipients how to stop getting emails from you. It's very simple. Have an opt-out link. You have to have a functioning opt-out. You can either take it by reply emails, or you can take it by a link. They don't tell you exactly how you have to do that, but just a functioning unsubscribe mechanism. It's pretty simple. Honor opt-out requests promptly. That means within 10 days. Within 10 days from the time that the person emails you, or clicks on the link, or tells you, they send you a letter, however they communicate with you, you need to stop sending them emails. I mean, most mailers I know, they do it within 24 hours. Most I know do it automatically because your unsubscribe link automatically goes through your system and suppresses them. You don't really want to wait 10 days, but that is the max that you can wait. So if you're getting letters sent to a mailbox, you better be checking it more than every 10 days because otherwise you're going to be violating this. And the people who write you letters are the ones who are going to complain. I mean, that's not rocket science, but the people who actually go to the trouble of writing a letter are either a grandma, and they don't understand the clicking on the link. Maybe your links are dead for some reason, they aren't working, or they're complaining. They're the type of person who's going to go through the effort of printing out the email, writing you a nasty note on top, and mailing it to you. Those are the people you want to be opting out within 10 days. You don't want to let those people go. And finally, monitor what others are doing on your behalf. I think this is where a lot of people mess up, is you have some tech guys sitting in your office, they're mailing for you, you contract out to a few affiliates you meet, maybe you meet some affiliates here that are like, hey, I'll run your product. And you're like, okay, I just don't want to know what you're doing. I don't want to know where you got your list. I don't want to know what you're putting in the from line. I don't want to know what you're putting in the subject line. Well, guess who's responsible? You are. You have to monitor what other people are doing on your behalf. A lot of people think, well, as long as I don't know what they're doing, then I'm fine. And that's not what the law says. But the law says that you are responsible for what people do on your behalf. So we talked a little bit about the $16,000 fine for violating this, and that would be the civil side of this. Did any of you know, though, that you can actually go to jail for violating CAN-SPAM? I know some of you know this. All right. Well, you know now. You can actually go to jail. People have actually gone to jail for this. Not a lot, I'll admit. It's not a lot of people that have gone to jail. But you don't want to be the next one. I mean, that's how it is. Maybe only 10 people have gone to jail, or 20 people have gone to jail, but you don't want to be the 21st. And it's for really stupid things. I mean, I also feel like if you go to jail for violating the CAN-SPAM Act, you are going to have the worst jail experience of anybody. There's no way you're going to be able to walk in there and be credible. I mean, seriously. What'd you do? Oh, I murdered someone. What'd you do? I jacked a car. What'd you do? I sent some spam. It's not going to go over very well. You are literally going to have the worst 2 years of your entire life. Even if it is a white-collar prison, it's going to be terrible for you. They're just going to make fun of you. I don't even know if they'll go to the effort of beating you up. They're just going to make fun of you. It's so stupid that you can go to jail for sending spam. But it's true. You can. So this is the part of CAN-SPAM that a lot of people don't talk about because I think they don't know it's there because it's in a different part of the law. It's like 2 chapters ahead. Not sure why. I didn't write it. And it has 5 parts to it that are criminal violations. The criminal violations are accessing a protected computer without authorization and initiating multiple commercial emails, meaning hacking, basically. You hack someone else's server, you send emails from it. You access an open relay, you send emails from it. There's lots of ways you can violate this. This is not one we see a lot of time. This is more like the Russians kind of mailing style. And no one's going to go over there and get them, so we don't see this a lot here. Number 2 is use a protected computer to relay or retransmit multiple commercial email messages. That would be using open relays. That would be maybe like emailing from at AOL, which the FBI is investigating right now. Any time where you're using a service in a way that you should not be using it to send spam, you're going to be violating 2 here. 3, this is what we see the most, is materially falsifies header information in multiple commercial email messages. So that's what we were talking about before about identifying yourself in the front line. So this is where we see the most, or by we, I mean myself, not a lot of people do this. This is where we see the most violations, though, is the false header information. So when you're sending an email, you're registering a domain. You're going to Moniker, GoDaddy, whoever it is. You're putting in your information, and you're registering that domain. And you're going to use that domain to send emails. Now, when you're logging in to Moniker, GoDaddy, whoever it is, and you go to register it, you'll notice they have that little private registration box checked, the privacy who is, because they make an extra $7.95, something like that, if you choose that service. You need to uncheck that box, because privately registering your domains and then using those domains to email per se violates this law. Not something new. It's always been like that. The court actually said it, I think, back in 2009 in a case, U.S. versus Kilbride, that sending from private registration violates this section of the law. You see it a lot, though. When you're checking domains, I see it all the time still. People who are registering from domains that are privately registered. You're violating this law. The law that carries jail time, just to remind you of that. And it's something so simple. Now, a lot of people, obviously, they're mailing from domains that are privately registered because they're trying to avoid Spam House, the other blacklists. They don't want to get Roxoed. Nothing wrong being Roxoed. Most of my best friends are on Roxo. It's not that big of a deal, and it's not worth going to jail for. Ooh. Number 4, it's similar to the domains. It's for IPs. Oh, no, actually, 4 is registering 5 or more electronic mail accounts or online user accounts, or 2 or more domain names, and intentionally initiating the transmission of multiple commercial email messages from any combination of those domain names. So I'm pretty sure that everybody uses more than 2 or more domain names to mail. Most people use thousands of them, so you're going to fall under this. This is also talking about maybe going on and registering 5 Hotmail accounts and then emailing from those. That would violate this. And then number 5 is falsely representing yourself to be the registrant of IP addresses. So most of you, I mean, unless you get really big, you're not going to be buying your own IPs and swipping the information to yourself. I mean, you're not going to be putting in your own information. You're going to be going to a registrar, leasing some from them, mailing from that. You're going to be buying, leasing small classes and mailing from those. But if you get big and you're buying your own classes of IPs and you're registering them yourself, then this applies. You need to put real registration information into those IPs. And you say, but why would I want to do that? Then everyone's going to know it's my IP range that's mailing, and then I'm going to get blocked. I know you don't want to, but you also don't want to go to jail. Here's the penalties. Imprisonment for not more than 5 years, or both. You can get a fine and imprisonment if the offense is committed in furtherance of any felony, or if you've been previously convicted of basically anything to do with email. So this is kind of the worst, is the 5 years. 2 to 3 is what we normally see. A little less imprisonment for not more than 3 years if you've falsified more than 10 domains. I'm pretty sure all mailers use more than 10 domains, so this is where you kind of fall in this category. Or the volume of email. Keep in mind, this was written a long time ago. We're probably sending 2,500 emails in 24 hours was a big deal. Not really a big deal anymore. Or the offense caused loss to one or more persons aggregating $5,000. So that's when an expert gets up there from like Yahoo and says, oh, it costs us more than $5,000 a year in order to prevent spam like this guy sends, and there you go, 3 years. Now this one is kind of the most interesting, and this is the one that gets a lot of people, is the offense was undertaken by the defendant in concert with 3 or more persons, with respect to whom the defendant occupied a position of organizer or leader. So that takes us back to being responsible for what people do on your behalf. Maybe you don't even mail yourself. Maybe it's your employees. You've got 3 employees, and they're all mailing. And one of them does something wrong, but you're benefiting from it as their leader. Or maybe you're not even benefiting from it. Maybe the business is losing money, but you're still their leader. You can still go to jail. And people actually go to jail for this. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. A couple years ago, I got a call from some guy named Brian McDade, who went to jail for 2 years under that section. He didn't mail himself. He'd been registering the domains, giving them out to mailers who were working for him. They were sending out his product. It was some back product, some health diet product that didn't work. And that's what he got it for false domain registration, because he was registering the domains with John Doe or Johnny Smith or whoever in the registrant box, fake information, and he was acting in concert with 2 or more people. And he got 2 years in federal prison. I'm guessing he's out by now, probably got out a couple months ago. But that's terrible. I mean, you're going to go to jail for 2 years because you're registering domains with the wrong information and then giving them out to a couple people to mail? Not worth it. The least is imprisonment for not more than 1 year. I haven't actually seen anybody get this little. That's the minimum, though. And then forfeiture. You have to give over all real property, personal, anything that's traceable as gross proceeds obtained from the offense. So all the money you made from it, and then maybe you took that money and you bought your mom a house, and you took that money and you bought a new car, you bought some snowmobiles, some furs, some jewelry, whatever. They take all of it, literally all of it. They'll go and move your mom out of her house and take her house. They don't care. It's the proceeds of the offense. So if you're mailing from domains that are registered inaccurately and you get caught, not only do you get in trouble, but you lose everything that you bought with that money and all that money. I think California has a smaller law on spam. This is what we see most of the lawsuits actually under. So the FTC is who enforces CAN spam, and they're the ones who come and give you a civil penalty. So if it's going to be the $16,000 per email or whatever the penalty is, that's going to come from the FTC. The criminal side we were just talking about, that's actually investigated by the FBI and then prosecuted by a U.S. attorney or the attorney general. That's obviously the worst part because it ends up with jail or other bad things like that. And yes, the FBI actually does actively investigate these. They will knock down doors, guns drawn, the whole thing, to grab some spammers. It's ridiculous, but it happens. It's not fun either. Trust me on this. It's not fun. California, though, is where we see the most of the lawsuits. So in California, we have this law which just talks about false headers. Again, we're talking about the from lines and the subject lines. Your from line doesn't identify who it's from, or your subject line is false or misleading. In California, you can get up to $1,000 per email, and there are, at this moment, probably, I don't know, I'm going to say 200 of these lawsuits in California going right now, some of them settling for millions of dollars, some of them settling for as little as a couple $1,000s. I personally have about 10 of these on my desk right now that I'm settling, and it's all for the from lines. So if you take away nothing from this other than from lines, register your from domains accurately. It's so simple. Put in a name. Put your company name in there. Put your address. If you don't want to put your actual address, get a mailbox. Have a different company register your domains. Whatever it is, put the real information in there. It's really, really simple. And the penalties for not doing it are so steep. And then in your friendly from box, put the name. Put the advertiser's name. It's really simple. It's really simple. There's nothing that's that difficult about this, and then you can avoid all of these fines, all of these problems, all of these lawsuits. And that is what I have.